scary character become domesticated as Santa Claus or St. Nicholas enters American culture. They become domesticated, they become shrunken in size, and they become innocent. They become Santa's elves. They're no longer threatening, scary characters, but now what do? It's a wonderful way in which a myth is changed. Now they're not scaring you, they're not tormenting you, they're not taunting you, but they're doing what?
They're working for you.
Yes, they're making you presents. We domesticate these scary characters. They still are working for Santa. Santa still has them, but now they're his employees, right? We put them to work in Santa's factory. There's movies made about these elves working in Santa's factory. But it's the domestication of a myth in which the scary figure, first of all, is rendered subject to the power of Santa Claus, subject to the power of the Christian saint, and then over time then translated into elves that are entirely innocent and sweet, in fact work for Santa all day long, just day and night. Imagine having that job as an elf. You just be worked to death. And it's okay because the elves like it. And we all like workers that don't complain. They work their tails off in our service. All right, so that's one part of the loop. Another part of the loop, and this is the last point that I want to make, is that in certain parts of Europe, the scary character, the Cernunnos character or the Schwarzepete character, was separated from St. Nicholas. And what caused the separation? What caused St. Nicholas to get separated from this scary, frightening, medieval monster that would come around scaring the children? What caused the separation? The answer to what caused the separation is Martin Luther. Martin Luther? Martin Luther? What does Martin Luther have to do with this? This is what Martin Luther has to do with it. Exactly this. Martin Luther has this to do with it because when Martin Luther started the Protestant Reformation, his target of attack was what existing religious tradition? Catholicism. He attacked Catholicism. And he challenged the institutional structures of Catholicism, and he challenged many of the claims of Catholicism, and especially among other things, he challenged the saints of Catholicism. And chief among his targets was the most popular saint in all Europe at that time, whose name was
St. Nicholas.
St. Nicholas. He went after St. Nicholas in particular because St. Nicholas's feast day was too close to the birthday of
Christ.
Jesus, yes, his hero. Too close to the birthday of Jesus. So he's got to knock down St. Nicholas, and in fact he does away with St. Nicholas and condemns St. Nicholas as encroaching on the birthday of Jesus. And it's Nicholas that gives us Kris Kringle, the Christ child. The Christ child. In opposition to St. Nicholas. And then, so you kind of have this tension. But in our wonderful way in American culture, where all religions are good and we like everybody, we meld them together. So St. Nicholas is also Santa Claus, is also Kris Kringle, is also all of the deities. But then what happens to the other guys? Those other guys become known as, well, Krampus is one. They become known as Belsnickels, or Nicholas in fur. You think of the word fur in German, Pelsnickels, Neck Ruprecht, which means Rupert the servant. These terrible, terrifying Christmas visitors, solstice visitors, now are separated from Nicholas because Luther's done away with Nicholas. But Luther didn't do away with the scary figures that came around. And so within the German mythology of Christmas, these characters still come around. And they come around as Krampus or Belsnickels or Neck Ruprecht, Rupert the servant. You ask yourself, Rupert the servant? Well, who is Rupert serving? He had been serving St. Nicholas, but there's no St. Nicholas anymore. So now he serves only himself. And he terrifies the children, especially in German communities. When I was writing the book, I had a graphic student who's actually editing. Well, some of you may remember Margot Smith. I don't know if you remember Margot or not. Remember Margot Smith? Margot was one of the editors for the book, and she was reading through it. And when she got to that part, and I had the section on Rupert the servant. When she got to that part, she said, "So that's where that guy came from. That guy would scare the living daylights out of me when I was a little kid growing up in New York City. He would always come around." Said she eventually figured out it was her uncle who would dress up like this. But it was the story. And so on Christmas Eve, in many German communities, you'd hear the knock at the door. And his kids would go running. They'd just run out of the room and hide or something like that. And father and mother would say, "Oh, I wonder who's at the door." And in fact, Rupert the servant, or Nichols, or something like that, and they'd come in and they'd say, and they'd say in a very large, gruff voice, it would be, generally it would be men on stilts, dressed up in furs or old clothes, really kind of scary looking guys, kind of like that. What's that creepy movie with the guy with the, what's the name of that movie with the guy with the hands?
Scissors.
No, not Edward Scissorhands, the other one. The guy, he shows up in your dreams. Freddy Krueger, yeah. No popular culture. You know,
He's gonna beat you for Christmas.
Yeah, like a Freddy Krueger character, only like even more scary. And he comes actually into your house. And he said, "I'm looking for the children." After all these years, they're still looking for them. But he comes in the house and he scares the children. And he would say, "Are there any children in this house?" And of course there were children in the house. This big guy on the stilt scaring the daylights out. "Are there any children in the house?" And "Don't tell them I'm here, boy, don't tell them." And Daddy would say, "Well, yes, there are children in the house. Let's bring them out." And there's this scary guy, and he would say, "Do you know any Bible verses?" And of course, the kids are so petrified they don't know any Bible verses. and then Margot told me the story, and it was remarkable how consistent it was with the other narrative. And then what would happen is Mom and Dad would take the child away and say, "Come on, honey, tell us the Bible verse." And then the kid would share the Bible verse, and Mom and Dad say, "Yes, they know their Bible verse." And he said, "Okay, well, we have some candy for them then." That's it.